How's it going, people? Slappy here, and this is episode 5.4 of Runescape Lore. And today we are going to be covering Saradomin, the God of Order. And we're going to cover what he did during the Third Age, as well as some of the Second Age. But first of all, I'm going to give you a bit of backstory on Saradomin himself. So, let's get started then. Saradomin is the god of order and wisdom, and sometimes is also associated with light as well. He is one of the most worshipped gods on Gielinor today. While often he's portrayed by his followers as the god of all that is good, he has been known to have a much darker side. Evidence of this is his entire destruction of the city of Askroth, when the Naragi race simply angered him and didn't want to join him, upon which he partaked in the Naragi God Wars and pretty much annihilated the entire area. In the Third Age though, he was known to have founded the Temple Knights, a highly secretive military and espionage organisation from Falador. He was even said to have given direct orders in person to the current head of operations and second in command, Sir Vay Lance. Today, however, Saradomin has a vast number of followers, most of which believe he is a god of good. And because of that, there are far more churches dedicated to him than other gods. In fact, most of his modern followers reside in Misthalin, Asgarnia, Kandarin and Intrana. But there are several groups outside these areas. Unlike those of Zamorak or Guthics, Saradomin's followers consist almost entirely of humans these days, though that was not always the case. Saradomin's symbol is known to be a four-pointed star that's usually coloured in gold or silver. And, just a little bit of information, Saradomin was the first god to return to Gielinor in the 6th Age. So let's get into it a bit then. So what did Saran get up to when he actually arrived in Gielinor then? Well, when he eventually arrived on Gielinor, the portal he came through was on the island of Intrana. This is why all Saradomin's followers have always considered the island as the holiest place in all of Gielinor. He most likely arrived along with other gods such as Armadil and Zaros in the Second Age. According to Guthics, Saradomin wears a crown. This crown is known to be an artifact made by the Elder Gods. This crown is said to allow him to sense the presence of other artifacts made by the Elder Gods. It can therefore be assumed that he came to Gielinor sensing the 3 Elder artifacts within. Those Elder artifacts the Guthics first discovered on Gielinor, those of which are the Stone of Jazz, the Staff of Armadil, and the Elder Horn. Soon after the gods arrived in Gielinor, they started to conquer the land. Saradomin's biggest known settlement at the time was the massive prosperous city of Hallowvale. Hallowvale was a mighty city inhabited with the Ician and humans, and they was ruled by Queen Ephorete and her husband Asurdes. Hallowvale actually still exists today under the name of Mayadich. Intrana remained under the control of Saradomin through the entirety of the Second Age, and a fortress was also built within Dragontooth Island. He also possibly conquered areas in modern-day Asgarnia in the Second Age. Saradomin had a strong alliance with Armadil. Whether this friendship actually started before or after their arrival on Gielinor though is still unknown. The reasons for this is believed to be the fact that Armadil and Saradomin's views and goals seem to coincide quite well, to be totally honest. They both kind of go for the same thing. The only difference is how they go about approaching such a problem, which Saradomin has no qualms with using underhanded means as long as it brings order, whereas Armadil will always strive for the justice or the right way. Well, for that, Saradomin, during this time in the Second Age, appeared to be on very bad terms with Zaros. Zaros, who actually ruled the mightiest empire of the entire Second Age. Near the end of the Second Age though, the Zarosian general and Marjara named Zamorak started to make plans to overthrow his master. Many of his fellow Marjara actually sided with him, and Saradomin also sent spies to Zamorak's base of operations in order to keep an eye on him. When the Staff of Armadil, an extremely powerful artifact owned by the god Armadil, was taken by a Saradomin follower by the name of Valdez, he wanted to take the artifact to Saradomin. However, through a series of unfortunate and accidental actions, which some Saradominists played a major role in, the staff actually fell into the hands of Zamorak's hand instead. With this powerful staff, Zamorak challenged Zaros in combat, which actually led to Zaros' banishment of the realm. Zamorak, upon which, also absorbed most of Zaros' power, and in turn was also banished by Saradomin and the other gods for banishing a god. Even though all the other gods feared Zaros, although later he returned as a god himself, since Zaros' banishment, Saradomin has done everything possible to cover up any and all information regarding Zaros, mainly to prevent him gaining followers and thus possibly returning, out of sheer fear of this god of domination. So upon Zamorak's banishment, we now move into the Third Age, which is kind of the idea of this episode. So, let's get into it. What did Saradomin do throughout the Third Age? Well, after Zaros' banishment, many of his followers sided with Zamorak, and Saradomin quickly took the opportunity to confiscate the Stone of Jazz from the banished Zamorak, placing it within a cave beneath Farinthi. Soon, however, Zamorak returned and, in an attempt to reclaim the stone, declared war, which then became the Gielinorian God Wars. The remaining Zarosian settlements were destroyed mostly by Saradominist and Zamorakian forces in a loose alliance during the Zarosian extermination, which lasted throughout almost the entire wars. Another notable alliance of Saradominists and Zamorakians was the imprisonment of Azanadra, champion of Zaros, in Geldarak Pyramid. They would sometimes turn against each other, however, as was evident during the Battle of Anakal in 3100. In the end, Sentistan and Gorak were the only settlements to survive the many attacks of Saradomin and Zamorak, making them the last Zarosian settlements at that time, which actually still stand today. Sentistan, though, eventually fell after Azanadra's imprisonment, though despite attempts of Wahesedil to make the Saradominists and Zamorakians fight against each other while trying to save the city, he unfortunately failed, and once the capital of Zarosian Empire was evacuated and destroyed. The other gods, including Saradomin, soon wished to conquer the lands of Zaros. Many battles were held, mainly within the Farinthi region. Because of its many resources, many gods wanted control over it. The war then escalated. However, soon all of Gielinor was dragged into the war. Saradomin was one of the most active gods of the God Wars, fighting against the armies of Zamorak, who turned into his worst enemy. Many Ician left from their home plane in order to fight for their god, Saradomin. Some humans also aligned to Saradomin, as well as a faction of dwarves, who did not hide underground. In addition to this, Saradomin bought a goblin tribe from Bandos, the Saragorgak. Intrana remained in Saradomin's hands throughout the entirety of these wars. Saradomin claimed most victories in the areas of modern-day Asgarnia and Mistalin. However, as much as Saradomin fought against Zamorak, he couldn't prevent him from claiming Hallowvale, which quickly fell to the vampire lord Draken, backed by an army granted by Zamorak in exchange for helping him overthrow Zaros. Many Ician, which were Saradomin's strongest tools of war, were wiped out during this battle. In a last-ditch effort to destroy Zamorak, Saradomin called Armadil and Bandos together to create the God Sword, an immensely powerful artifact which was believed to be able to kill a god. Saradomin gathered a last battalion to fight Zamorak's forces, and the Aviantes of Armadil were charged with the task of delivering the God Sword to this army. However, they were soon ambushed by Zamorak's forces, while Saradomin's armies were attacked as well. The Aviantes were forced into retreat, into an old Saradominist temple, which is today the God Wars dungeon. Saradomin and Bandos also sent their forces into this dungeon to aid the Aviantes. It was during this time that the champion of Zaros, Nex, aroused from her enchanted sleep after Sliskle manipulated some people to perform an awakening ritual. Laying waste to vast numbers of followers from all sides, Nex, even while weakened from her slumber, was nearly unstoppable, along with her army. Soon though, all gods were forced to unite, and they formed a temporary alliance, and in turn ended up trapping Nex behind the frozen door inside a prison. At the peak of the God Wars, Zamorak finally had the Stone of Jazz. He used it to enhance his powers and destroyed the entirety of the Farinthi site, which is today the Wilderness. Upon which Guthix was awoken, with the booming and massive destruction from his slumber, and immediately put an end to the God Wars. He took a gigantic sword, smashed it into the middle of the Farinthi region as a demonstration of his immense power, and created his edicts, which in turn banished all major gods of Gielinor. They could still slightly affect Gielinor while not being on it, however. After being banished, Saradomin is known to have retreated to the world of the Ician, where he then again focused on building his relationship with them, all the while looking for any possible way to return to Gielinor. Even today, Saradomin is still building his forces. And when the 6th Age comes, who knows what will actually happen. So there we have it, people. That is the end of episode 543. Anywho, yeah, it was a fairly short one. There's not a massive amount of information on what Saradomin did specifically during the 3rd Age, other than basically catfight with Zamorak in the meanwhile of teaming up together to take out Zaros. So yeah, sorry for the shortness, but soon we will be moving on to the 4th Age, and there's quite a lot of information on the 4th Age, so yeah, that should be pretty interesting. So if you like this video, please by all means give it a like, let me know you like this series and I'll keep on doing it. And with that said, until next time people, have a good one.